permitting process, and we have hit many roadblocks along the way on changes that happen. That is, it's some of them is verbal, a few of them is documented. So if we can get the wording of residential out of the electrical code, then it would help us a lot, because they're requiring us to have either an architect or a structural engineer to stamp our drawings. And we never had that before this year. And the electrical code was adopted in November of last year, November 16th. And ever since then, we've been constantly just changes and roadblocks. These kind of things was supposed to have been figured out last year. So when the code was changed, we would know exactly what to do. It's basically, how do you give a customer a price if we don't know what the county is going to require? Yeah, basically, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Shea. Our next testifier here is PV System. It's Bob Ernest, and he's making a comment. And he's representing himself.
Thank you.
Mr. Ernest.
Hello, county council members. It was really a pleasure being with you this morning. I just want to make a quick comment too. A big part of our spreadsheet that was given to DOE as part of the process of the PEIS has to do with conservation. Because even talk with Jay Ignacio and Norman, conservation's a big one. And your poor county council is sitting back there under a blanket because she's freezing to death and it's too cold in here. And this is what conservation is all about. And the county should be setting an example. Instead of sitting in this freezing room with and I said, can't you change it? No, you can't change it. That's got nothing to do with this, but I just wanted to make that comment. We need to set the example as the county on conservation. Regarding this that's before you, I'm wondering if this is an engineer-architect guaranteed income act at the expense of the people who install solar photovoltaic. I just want to mention, a senior official I spoke with in the building department told me they do not require an engineer-architect stamp any longer, and I applaud that. But that's not what this says, and I hope possibly that official would come forward and confirm that language and see if we can't get the language in here that will reflect what's actually happened. Is that the end? Yeah. If you recall last summer during Bill 270, I recall it, building code, we asked you to do a Hawaii Island building code, not the Chicago building code, which you ultimately approved. We asked that our own Hawaii Island code be prescriptive design, in other words, minimum standards. PV photovoltaic minimum design standards with lower costs would not require engineer architect stamp for each installation, which streamlined the building permit process. Well, I mean,
Excuse me, Bob, go ahead and summarize. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Summarize.
Yeah. If you choose to consider prescriptive design rules, I volunteer to coordinate with others and the building department to propose PV rules that will do what I just suggested. Mahalo, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank
Our
you.
next testifier is Mr. Kaleo Chung, and he with Walters Electric and Bill 305. Please identify yourself, sir.
My name is Khalil Chung of Walters Electric, Aloha County Council. I'm in support of Bill 305, and like the previous two fellows before me, they explained that the permitting process for residential photovoltaic is terrible right now. Ever since November 15th till now, there's more questions than answers. We go to the top of the public works and ask them for answers, and they always give us the runaround. Nothing straight. But that's exactly like what he said. A senior official had told him verbally that they don't require architect and structural engineering stamps no longer for residential. Verbally is not good enough for us. We need it in writing. We need something, substantial. We need something that we can touch and feel, and just one. Bottom line, we just want one set of rules so we can all play by the same rules. Basically, we all want to work. That's what we want to do. And I feel like we're doing the community a service, actually, becoming more energy independent. And for our company, we work in every county in the state. Maui County, Honolulu, Kauai, and we have the worst permitting process system out of all of them. And it's very eye-opening to me. I don't understand what's behind it. Why we're so difficult. Recently they even brought up about seismic zones. Different type of requirements in different seismic areas, and that was amazing to me. If we keep trying to prepare for the unprecedented, we will never stop. Adding requirements. Let's pretty much. I just want to make it an easy, efficient process. Just like the systems we put up. Yeah, when having like this past year, we waited. I mean, there was a time when I waited 12 weeks for a permit. It's unacceptable. We cannot work like that. And I'm sure you guys are aware of the whole race with Helco, the utilities, stuff like that. So I guess bottom line, I want to support 305. I think it's a good thing. I'm glad, Mr. Yoshimoto brought it to light. And actually, I think there's a couple more things we should really bring to light with the county council, because even for inspections, recently they told us that they're going to provide their own ladder and ropes and stuff to climb up on their roofs, but nothing in writing yet, verbal again, and I think that's the problem. Yeah.
Summarize.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Barbara and Pahoa, do you have the testifier there?
Yes, thank you, Chair Goss. Our testifier this afternoon is Robert Patricky, and he's speaking in support of Bill 305.
Aloha, County Council. I'm going to support Bill 305 with reservations. In listening to what the two solar contractors said, and I concur with that. We need to get the residential language out of the bill. And, these guys are trying to do exactly what the state and county says they want to do, which is energy efficiency and bring rates down. We got these Helco rates that nobody can afford, so everybody's moving to solar, and what happens? We have a roadblock. And here you have people wanting to work, customers wanting to put solar in, and they can't do it because of the county building codes. So, we tried to talk to you guys about that on Bill 270, and I think the county building codes are a real problem. So I hope you'll fix this bill so that I'll do what it's intended to do. I'm going to support it in the hope that you're going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Is there any more testifiers? Kona? Waimea? Pahoa? Here in Hilo, we don't have. Let me go into referrals. Communication 826, Bill 293. Amends Chapter 15, Article 1, Section 15-3, and Article 2, Section 15-21 of the Hawaii County Code 1983, 2005 edition as amended, relating to prohibition of commercial activities at Honaunau Boat Ramp. Amends Chapter 15, Article 1, Section 15-3, definitions, and Chapter 15, Article 2, Section 15-21, by adding a new item and renumbered as required, and by revising an existing item for commercial or commercial activity means a use or purpose designed for profit, which includes, that is, but is not limited to the exchange or buying, selling of commodities. The providing of services related to or connected with trade or commerce in general. Any activity performed by the commercial operator or its employees or agents in the connection with the delivery of such commodities or services and the soliciting of business. The use of these premises and facilities for official canoe club activities and races shall not be considered commercial activity. And Section 3, Chapter 15, Article 2, Section 15-21 of the Hawaii County Code 1983, 2005 edition as amended, is amended to read as follows. Section 15-21, solicitation and commercial activity. A, engaging in or soliciting any business in a park area except in accordance with the provision of a permit, contract, or other written agreement with the county is prohibited. B, subsection A, notwithstanding commercial activities, is prohibited at the following: 1, Honaunau Boat Ramp. This amendment were generated due to amend Chapter 15 relating to prohibition of commercial activities at Honaunau Boat Ramp. introduced by Mr. Palago. May I have a motion to approve Bill 293 and file all relating communications?
So moved.
Mr. Chair? It's moved and second.
Um,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Palago.
well, the motion is already made and seconded, so the item is up. It was my intention because it requires, my introduction requires revision to withdraw at this time. But, I don't know how we're gonna deal with this.
Withdraw my motion. Sir, for clarification, this is the clerk, may I have, who made the motion and who seconded, please?
We have, Mr. Yoshimoto and Mr. Onishi. Withdrawn.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Deputy Clerk? One moment, sir, please.
Second on the other side. Yes.
If they would,
Mr. Deputy Clerk, I would like to withdraw my motion. This is Mr. Onishi. Thank you, that's correct, thank you.
thank you, sir. Mr. Bloss, with your permission, Bill 293 requires revisions. Therefore, as introduced, I at this time withdraw Bill 293, Communication 826.
Okay, it's been withdrawn. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Communication 837, Bill 304. Amends Chapter 24, Article 10, Division 6, Section 24-288 of the Hawaii County Code, 1983, 2005 edition, as amended, relating to freight loading zones. Amends Chapter 24, Article 10, Division 6, Section 24-288. Schedule 36, Freight Loading Zones, subsection C, South Hilo, by revising an existing item 19, Puna Hawaii Street, northwest side from a point 19 feet southwest of Puna Hoa Street and extending 32 feet in the southwesterly direction, introduced by Mr. Bloss. There is communication number 8, on the communication number 37 is to correct the item number, instead of 20, it's 19, and the transmit letter dated August 20, 2012. May I have a motion to approve Bill 304 and file all related communications?
So moved. Second.
It's moved and second. Any discussion? If none, Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman? Mr. Cato?
One moment, please.
It's not an amendment.
Go ahead.
Aye.
Okay, who is saying one moment? Who's asking?
I did, there was some confusion here.
All right.
There was some
Mr.
confusion,
Cato,
but
your
it's all
vote,
right
sir.
now. Aye.
Mr. Cato, vote. Mr. Cato, your vote.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Onishi.
Aye.
Mr. Pelago. Ms. Smart. Mr. Yagong.
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto. Chair Blas.
Aye.
Chair Blas, you have 9 ayes.
Point of order, please.
Bill 304 has passed to council with a positive recommendation.
Point of order, sir.
Go ahead, Ms. Ford.
Thank you. I hope we just voted on the amendment. Is that correct?
No, there's no amendment, it's just a correction, the communication number. The 837 to correct item number 20 instead of 19. On the
Okay, wait a
transmittal
minute.
letter, on the
Okay.
transmittal letter dated August 20, 2012.
Okay. We have in front of us Communication 837, which is your Bill 304. We also have an amendment, Communication number 837.1, to correct the number of this item from 20 back to 19. Did we just vote on the amendment, 837.1?
No.
Ms. Ford, if I, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Thank
Yes,
you.
right.
If you
Not
could
agendized.
correct my misunderstanding, thank you.
What I think is happening is the transmittal was incorrect, but the actual bill itself was correct. So the subsequent communication was just indicating that the prior communication was incorrect, but the actual legislation itself is fine. That's my understanding, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshimoto. I did not catch that, and I appreciate your correcting me. Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on. Communication 838, Bill 305. Amends Chapter 9, Article 5, Division 1, Section 9-33 of the Hawaii County Code, 1983, 2005 edition as amended, relating to plans and specification requirements. Amends Chapter 9, Article 5, Division 1, Section 9-33, plans and specification requirement deviation, subsection B, by revising an existing item. Installation of photovoltaic systems shall require 1. A building permit with residential and non-residential installation. 2. Electrical design drawings and specification bearing the approval of an electrical engineer registered in the state of Hawaii for residential and non-residential installation. 3. Plans for specification for building work bearing the approval of an architect or a structural engineer registered in the state of Hawaii for non-residential installation only, introduced by Mr. Yoshimoto. May I have a motion to approve Bill 305 and file all related communications?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and second. Any discussion? Mr. Yoshimoto?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
Chair,
Chairman.
by whom made the first and second, please?
Mr. Yoshimoto and Mr. Onishi. Mr. Yoshimoto make the first one, second by Mr. Onishi.
I have a comment, Mr. Chair, if I can.
I have the floor, actually, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, Ms. Hoffman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Yoshimoto, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, actually, first of all, Mr. Clerk, can you tell me if there's anyone from Public Works available in Kona?
Yes, there is.
Okay, who might that be?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Director Warnley.
Okay, if you could ask Mr. Lee to please come forward to the table.
Please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Erickson. They're also here in Hilo. Okay. All right. So let me begin with a brief introduction. I drafted this legislation in response to concerns raised to me by people in the community. Basically, what happened is I received several concerns from people who are concerned about the lengthy process involved in installing these PV systems. And one of the concerns they had was involving the architect and engineer stamps, which were not required prior to our passage of Bill 270 back in November of 2011. So this is in response to those problems that were addressed to me. And since then, I've had an opportunity briefly to talk to Mr. Gonzalez. I haven't talked to Mr. Erickson yet, so I'm curious to hear their feedback. I know that the administration is trying to streamline things. I think that's a safe opinion to me. But so before I go further, that's where this legislation came from. The hope is that if we remove the architect and structural engineer requirement for residential installations, that one, it would lower the cost, two, that it would speed things up a little bit. I recognize that there are public safety concerns that are also involved here, so I would like to hear from Mr. Gonzalez or Mr. Erickson, whoever wanted to, or Mr. Lee.
Hang on,
So,
Mr. Chair, before we do that, I have a point of order real quick, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Listening.
I am a little, I'm unsure if we could go into this bill at this point in time, as we had a bill earlier this summer dealing with the exact same item, and we killed it at that point, and I was under the impression that we can only hear the same bill once every term, or maybe I'm mistaken, it's still once every year, but we have addressed this issue once before and killed that effort. So I want to make sure that we're on the same page. If you may recall, Mr. Ross Armetta came before us. I believe it was Dominic that introduced it. It might have been May or June-ish. So I'm concerned that we're not able to discuss this at this point.
I don't recall that, Ms. Smart, do you have a bill number so the staff can look it up? Because I don't remember anything similar coming up. You said we brought it before, you brought it, or Mr. Yuran brought it for the
No,
council?
Mr. Yagon brought it forward, and we had Mr. Ross Armetta in the audience, and we went through this whole thing about whether it was permitted and whatnot, and the fees involved, and we killed that effort because the council felt there was no real change. Do you mind if we call a recess to look into this, to make sure we can continue this
Yes.
discussion?
Okay, yeah, we'll call on the
Is
recess.
that okay?
Sure, we'll call on the recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
What did you do, Ross? I figured out I can only learn one new name a day, and as long as I keep it to that, I can actually retain one.
Well, I need to use
7 years?
I messed up. But nevertheless, I know it's gonna be alright, but I had your name mixed up with some of it. You're videoing it, EIS?
Yes.
What happened to capture my bill?
I got the whole thing.
Where did I get it from you?
It's on YouTube.
Oh, I couldn't find it. I saw about the flyers. You got the whole meeting there?
Yeah, I got the whole thing beginning to end.
Oh, I didn't know. I'll do
And
it.
it's in 2 parts. Yeah, yeah, Occupy Hawaii is the channel. Yeah. And if you search Bill PEIS, it should come out. And there's only 2 parts. It's 2 long parts. The first part was like a whole hour of their presentation and everything. It's all right. If you have trouble,
I remember Ross.
Bring it up. It's just a calendar. Once a week. Hold on, I gotta.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, we're still here. Just give us a few more minutes.
I've got the answer for you, so you can get us back from recess at any point, and if I can just have a quick second to explain, and then we can give the floor back to Mr. Yoshimoto to question
Okay,
Mr.
go ahead. We're calling the meeting back to order, and we're reconvening now, so go ahead, Ms. Martin.
Okay, thank you for that brief recess, and thanks to LRB for checking. I guess it was an amendment to the electrical code that we voted down. So, go ahead, Mr. Yoshimoto. I apologize. I thought it was its own separate effort that we had been working on. So, thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so where was I? I think, just explaining the history. And I guess, Mr. Lee, would you like to begin by providing a position from the Department of Public Works?
Very much, Mr. Yoshimoto. Warren Lee, Director of Public Works. Kevin Lee, Director of Public Works.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Relative to Bill 305, the way the bill is presently proposes to amend the ordinance is not to require a structural engineer stamp for a residential PV system. It will require a building permit, but not a residential, not a structural or architectural stamp for a residential application. So let me briefly, hopefully very briefly, explain the rationale why the present Chapter 9 is worded as it is. And basically, you need a electrical permit with a electrical engineer stamp. No one seems to dispute that. Then you have a building permit that is required for residential and non-residential and requiring a structural engineer stamp. And there is a condition in which a structural engineer stamp is not, or architecture stamp is not required. And before I forget, let me get into that. So if you have, maybe I shouldn't get into it at this time. Let me kind of run through the progression of the logic here. So when you look at a residential PV system, a residential PV system generally, or 99% of the time, is attached to the roof. So you have the panel, and then you have a mounting system, and the mounting system attaches to the roof. So it is, and when you think about a residential photovoltaic system, if you've seen the, if you've driven around town or in subdivisions, basically the panels cover almost the entire roof of the, of one side of it, of one side of the structure. Most likely the panels will be facing south, southeast, south, southwest, because that's where you get the best sunlight for your panels. So you have this major structure of maybe 15, 20 or more panels that are interconnected, interlocked, attached to the same roof. So the concern from the structural engineer side for the building permit is that will this added appendage to the roof create a structural issue? Now, when you look at the typical analysis would be for the engineer or the architect to look at, okay, consider what is the dead load, what is the weight of the panels and the systems, what is the live load, what, meaning would people walk on the panels? Probably not. The dead load is very minimal. It could run from 1.6, 1.5 pounds per square foot to maybe 2 higher, depending on what type of panels that are installed. But the real concern that we have from a structural standpoint is what is the impact of high wind on the system? Generally, these panels could be located maybe with the rail system 2 to 6 inches above the roof. So there is a gap. So under normal wind loading analysis, what you're concerned about is two factors. One is the uplift of the wind on the panel, and the other is the wind going over the panel at high speed, creating a vacuum. For example, if you're driving to Hilo or you're driving to Kona and you have all your windows up, you crack the window, you have a vacuum. Basically what you're doing is you're drawing out air because of difference in the pressure. So uplift from the bottom and vacuum or negative, what we call negative pressure, is a concern basically on the fastening system. So when you consider what kind of roof you are putting this on, what kind of, in this case, residential roof, the concern is it a flat roof or is it a sloped roof? Most homes in Hawaii are sloped 312 or 412, not too many steep one-to-one roofs. So the question is, with the 412 or the 312, what is the impact? And when was this home constructed? Was this home constructed before 1972? What, and what's early 70s? The significance of that is that prior to 1972, most homes the framing or the structural framing was not constructed with termite treatment lumber. The other factor is 1994 to consider. Prior to 1994, Hurricane Iniki was 1991. Hurricane clips were not required. So you take a home that could be 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, 5 years old in our environment, where you have termites, where you have wood rot, where you have high winds. You had your home or the structure that's supporting this panel, the roof, may not be in the same condition as when it was constructed. So therefore, a structural engineer or an architect needs to look into what is being applied for and make sure that there is integrity in the structure. Because you are purchasing, or someone is putting on, maybe a PV system that is worth, valued at anywhere from $50,000 or more dollars, even though there may be a 35% tax credit and a 30% federal tax credit. But still yet, what you're looking at, the system is in thousands of dollars. So what does a structural stamp require? Why is it required, or what does it cost? Because that's what I heard one of the things was. It's the cost. A structural stamp costs what, depending on the complexity of the review, could be several $100s. There is time involved. Structural engineer needs to be present. But this is the exception that I talked about, mentioned earlier, after I kind of described the system, is that we have been telling the contractors who apply for PV permits that if you are putting in a mounting system that has been reviewed and approved by such agencies like the ICC, the Code Committee, or some testing facility, and you want to bring that to us, or you want to bring an analysis to us of a structural system, mounting system, that has been reviewed by a structural engineer or an architect, we will accept it. In other words, you do not have to go out and get a structural engineer stamp or an architect stamp for every drawing if you use the same type of mounting system that has been pre-approved. So I think my comments were either taken out of context or listened halfway, saying that a structural engineer stamp is not required and is not in writing, because that is the current practice. So, and some of these people are kind of, I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, but they are the very ones submitting applications, and they are the very ones that submitted the analysis, the ICC analysis for our review, and which we accepted. So I think the crux of the matter is that, yes, you need a structural stamp for someone to review it. And if the applicant does not provide that structural stamp, then someone from the building department, building division, will probably have to review it. And that will take much longer for one structural engineer to review 50 applications that we receive every day or more versus 50 applications that need the stamp, having that stamp already submitted. So the time frame of processing the permits would probably be longer if a structural stamp is not required and an approved, pre-approved structural system is not being utilized. So I don't want to get too long in this, but that is a general thought behind requiring the, not the thought, but the reason for the requirement for a structural stamp and for DPW to not support the Bill 305.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Okay, so I'm just going to try and summarize what I heard. So you're saying that if the council passes this bill as currently drafted, it would take longer to process the permits through the building department, because someone in the building department would have to look at the drawings?
Well, what I've said, and just for clarification, because sometimes we use building department too broadly. So what is required here, Councilman Yoshimoto, is an electrical permit, which there does not seem to be any controversy, and you require a building permit. And the building permit would be for, there's two categories of building permits in this case. One for commercial or non-residential, which doesn't seem to be a controversial issue at this point based on how Bill 305 is drafted. But it appears to be the residential component of a building permit that requires a structural stamp or the use of a pre-approved structural system.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask Mr. Erickson and maybe Mr. Gonzalez to further expand, because I thought I heard that if this passes, then it will create more work. Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
So let me finish to answer your question, Councilman Yoshimoto. So yes, if you have a plan coming in for a building permit without a structural stamp, okay, we're gonna have to review it. Okay, so what is the basis of review? The basis of review is what is submitted. And one of the things, as I mentioned, we are concerned about is how good are the attachments and what are you attaching to? And this is all for the rationale of public health and safety. We don't want panels flying off the roof.
Okay, I understand that. That's completely understandable to me. Okay. The whole purpose, and this is for Mr. Erickson and Mr. Gonzalez too. We're just trying to help. This is what I was told. I was told that having the architect and the structural engineer stamps were not necessary. I understand the public safety component. I'm told too that there is a pre-approved process where if certain plans are being utilized, they can streamline the process. So either Mr. Erickson or Mr. Gonzalez, if you could expound on those two issues before we get further involved.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshimura. Brandon Gonzalez, Deputy Director, Department of Public Works. As you mentioned, and I think Warren mentioned, the department has been pre-approving systems that have been undergone review and testing by certain agencies or have been reviewed by licensed professionals. We have issued 2 bulletins to the public. We've put it on our website. We've emailed it to, I believe, the contractors and some of the suppliers and installers. The first bulletin was dated August 24th after after 2 public sessions with PV installers and electrical installers, contractors on August 14th and 15th. That first bulletin dealt with the issue about ladders and inspections. It also clarified how to request an inspection, that there was no specific order for building or electrical. It also clarified and put into writing one type of pre-approved mounting system. And then September 17th, yesterday, we issued a second bulletin for a second system that was pre-approved. And that bulletin, we received materials from a certified engineer firm certifying that the mounting system for that system. And we have put that on the website and also sent that out to everyone. So that as best as we can, we get the information out to everyone in the industry so that everybody knows and everybody plays by the same rules.
Okay. So, the electrical contractors now have, there's 2 examples of pre-approved systems that will be accepted by the building department without the need of an architect or structural engineer staff.
For application.
Right, for application. Okay. Okay. So, is it then the position of DPW then that that process is taking care of the concerns that are being raised by people in the public? I mean,
that's a good question. We've told the contractors that we are always looking for feedback. We're always looking to improve. Right now, we are doing our best to handle all the permit types that come in, not only for photovoltaic, but for very general building permits, plumbing permits. The mechanism already exists within the law where we can try and improve efficiency and review without compromising public health and safety. Our approach is looking for a balance. We are aware of the concerns in the customers wanting their systems and the contractors and the installers giving jobs to employees and helping energy efficiency. So we balance that along with our enforcement and regulatory duties of public health and safety. So it's progressing and we are working to get it even better. We think it's going in the right direction.
okay. Mr. Archer, did you want to add anything?
Neil Erickson, Department of Public Works, Building Division. Just to clarify, besides the 2 systems that were approved because of review by structural engineers, there are systems that have been approved through ICC evaluation reports. So there's a total of 5 right now that we are recognizing that have been submitted for our consideration, and 1 more that I'm still reviewing. So we come in frequently, and we're looking at them all the time. So we're trying to play a little catch up.
Okay, so when you mentioned 5 pre-approved systems, how would that apply to most residential, well, all residential homes? In other words, is this cover 10%, 50%, 70%, of the homes? In other words, how flexible are these pre-approved plans?
Most of these systems are very similar. Although the name brands are different, it's almost hard to discern one from another. So this probably covers at least 50% of the applications that we see on a regular basis, maybe upward of 75 of them. We're seeing very few that have architect or engineer signatures. Typically, Kona applications, they put that into their initial cost to the consumer, and so they don't even consider the pre-approved systems at all.
Okay, thank
Mr. Yoshimoto, I would also like to add that the photovoltaic or the solar electric business is a very competitive business, and there are many products out on the market, from different type of panels. I mean, there's a whole bag of type of panels you can buy, type of mounting devices, type of connectors, type of inverters, and because it's a competitive market, the suppliers or the contractors, they're bidding. If I'm going to put in a photovoltaic system, I'm not going to call one vendor and get a price and see what type of modules he has. But these modules, as I mentioned, they come in all sizes and variations. And today, most people could be buying panels from some Chinese company, or tomorrow it could be from some Korean company, or and the industry is going to change. So each time a model changes or a mounting system changes, and if it may be competitively priced, the architects or the engineers who are hired by the contractors need to tell us what they're doing, because I mean, this is not cookie cutter type of business. There are many aspects to reviewing and putting together a system, and I think competition breeds a lot of challenges for us. But we're here, and but we just want to make sure that in the end, a building permit, an electrical permit is processed, approved, and the unit is constructed according to the drawings.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to call up more people, and then I'll...
Okay, go ahead, and I'll have Mr.
I'm going to ask Mr. Shua and, I'm sorry. Go ahead. John. Okay. Your reaction, feedback as to what was represented?
I understand what Mr. D was saying, and I don't totally disagree with it. The only thing I can say is the Big Island of Hawaii, on record, has never been hit by a hurricane. Knock on wood. Kauai has, Oahu has, and they do not require architect or structural engineering stamps in any residential photovoltaic system. In fact, we are the only county in the state that require. And as they say, they leaving the wording in there and let them verbally or pre-approve. To me, in my opinion, it's too subjective. It gives them too much of a gray area to decide, who gets passed through pre-approve and who not. And we all know that that's a slippery slope. You know what I mean? As much as I would like to think it's fair, we are still human. There's that human factor in there. And like I said, I have seen a lot of changes. We've been installing for 4 years, and like I told Billy, only up until November 15th have you even heard a squeak from any electrical contractor. The previous years, we had no problems. What makes the systems we installed on November 14th, not as safe as we did on November 16th? We were using the exact same materials. So I guess that's my only point. I understand that it's a tough decision and it is competitive, but I guess another question I have is I cannot justify having that architect stamp, which he said it costs several $100s. It could cost $500. It could cost $1,000. It just depends. But if we don't add one lumber or pound one nail into the home to shore up, the structure, I cannot justify having that $1,000 wet stamp there. What, are they looking for liability, looking for somebody to go after if something happens? Because my understanding is the liability all falls on the contractor himself. And each contractor gotta use their head and understand that they don't wanna put it on a structure that's not safe or sound. So I think go ahead and put the weight back on us, as well as what I'm saying. I think.
Well, that is right there. As contractor, we as a contractor hold a lot of liability. County says in their code that they are non-liable. Yeah, it's specifically in the code that the county is non-liable. So if they're non-liable, why do they put so much pressure on us to get detailed drawings, hire engineers to have structural evaluation on the mounting system? When something happens in the end, county is non-liable. And with this in the code of the architect or structural engineer, they've been making changes on us. And what do they fall back on? Or it says in the electrical code that you need a structural engineer or a licensed architect. We're making it easier for you guys by not having that. That's what they always been pushing back. Because it says in the electrical code, because the question was brought up about water heaters, solar water heaters. Why you guys don't go after the people that do water heater systems? What kind of drawings do they have to supply? Well, it's not in the plumbing code to have a structural engineer or an architect. So it always fell back to the electrical code. That's why, to me, we could get that residential wording out of the electrical code, it would help us.
I like add on to what Dean said, because we do install solar water heaters, and I know for a fact, depending which system it is, if you're talking about the solar hard system, the passive system with the tank and the panels on the roof, that's like 1,700 pounds, over 50 pounds per square foot. I mean, that's eye-opening, and photovoltaic is, I have never seen it more than 5 pounds per square foot. That thing, like I said, I mean, we can go on and on about trying to prepare for unprecedented things, but sooner or later, we gotta factor in everything, timely manner, cost, I think, I'm really glad you guys looked at it. I think the more the public hears it, and, they'll probably make their voices heard as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr.
Well,
Schiff.
we're also, like, Warren was saying about not having to have a structural engineer to stamp your drawings and they can approve it. That is wrong, because as soon as our plans go through and there is no structural engineer stamp, they reject it. And they call us back and they say it's rejected. So it doesn't even take 1 month, 2 months, it's always just rejected. As long as it doesn't meet their requirements, it's rejected. So I didn't see that.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Ross, I'll yield the floor and I'll provide further comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yoshimoto. I have Mr. Onishi next, and Kona. As soon as Mr. Onishi is done, I'll put you on the floor. Go ahead, brother.
Ms. Upton, do you want to go first?
No, Mr. Onishi. In fact, after listening to some of the comments, I think I'm just going to sit here and listen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Onishi.
Can I have because Brandon and the person, one of my concerns was first, we always mention public safety and health, right? And so I wanted to find out, who gets the burden in case something should happen, like when installation is done and the panel, something happened, like it flies off or it, the roof collapse and whatever. Who's going to be responsible? Who's liable for this? If you're asking as a legal question, I'm going to defer to the architect. If you look in the code, there is language inserted in there to try and mitigate the exposure of the county, but any crafty attorney can come up with legal theories to try and create liability in general. But we just heard that the contractors mentioned that basically, like, they would be responsible. Okay, so that was just one of my questions. I guess the second question is, for electrical code, people say that there's like 5 different certified, approved systems, correct? Designs, right? But then now we have the photovoltaic system, and then we also need a building permit to, correct, to put that onto. Yes, the electrical and building permit. Okay, and then so now, the process, like, as the contractor mentioned before, like for a water solar system, which is much heavier, and it's not required for them to, I guess, have this building permit.
Well, the building permit is always required for solar hot water installation, and if the panel has a tank on the roof, it also requires an architect or a structural engineer, if it has a tank on the roof. And if they are 50 pounds a square foot, we do have concerns. But 1,700 pounds, pales in comparison to a 1,000 square foot roof with 3 to 5 pounds per square foot panels.
I'll yield right now.
Thank you, Mr. Anishi. Kona, anyone in Kona?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Ford.
Thank you. I'd like to direct my questions to Mr. Lee. Warren, just to refresh our memories, a building permit costs approximately how much? We're talking PV systems now.
The building permit for a PV system generally runs about several $100s. It's based on the evaluation of the PV system. So, for example, if someone is putting in 1,000 watts or 2,000 watts, based on what the applicant submits to us or what is the value, we will use a rule of thumb like $5 to $6 per watt. So that would, for example, be 60,000 for a 1,000 watt system, and then there's a formula in the building permit based on the 1,000. So generally comes out about $300 to $400,000.
And does the building permit allow the electrical work to be done, or do you need a second electrical permit?
You need an electrical permit, which is separate from the building permit.
And how much would that be?
And that runs maybe about $20.
Oh, first deal I've heard of. Okay, so.
We are behind the times.
Yes, I understand.
State of Hawaii.
Okay. Well, that's another bill. All right, so several $100s for the building permit, only $20 for the electrical, and several $100 for, plus $500,000 for the structural engineer.
$500 you said?
$500 to $1,000.
Well, I'm not sure we're 1,000, but depends how complex the system is.
Okay.
What the roofing system looks like.
All right.
Maybe needs a lot of work.
Okay. How backed up are we with these permits for the PV? Because I've heard about that. I get complaints every once in a while. It's infrequent. But how backed up are we in getting the permits and things out for these systems to be installed?
So if I understand the question, how fast are the permits being processed?
Okay, that's fair. I'll take that.
Since I have data for the two permit system, which is a building permit and electrical permit. Let's say since, and I'm going to give some general round numbers here. Let's say that since July 31st to today, which is about a month and a half, we've processed about 700 permits. And in fact, I got the numbers right here. 600, we've processed 611 permits. And of the number of permits, of the 611, 175 was processed within 14 days.
Okay, so about a third of them is 14 days.
And most of those, since we worked with the working group, the people like Dean and Khalil and Taime and others in the industry, we did publish guidelines earlier this year. And that, again, that was referred to the guidelines, but when you submit your plans, make sure that you have all this information on, for example, tax map key, describe your system, so that there be at least a uniform amount of information being provided so that we don't have to reject that permit to get more information, application. So of those that are done, were done in less than 14 days, of the 174, just one was recycled. They went into basically 2 reviews. Now, between 14 and 28 days, we processed 214 permits. And of those 214, 199 went through 1 review. Now, so that was 14 to 28 days. At 28 to 42 days, we had 111. And then for greater than 42 days, we had another 111. But as you can probably tell, is that the ones that took longer had more reviews because maybe they didn't fix the comments that we made, so they went through multiple reviews. I can say in general, with the support and the feedback and the input of the industry, contractors, we are working towards making this system better, streamlining it, making it more efficient without compromising quality of review. One thing that we just instituted last week, in fact, relative to our building permit streamlining process, is that you can now apply for a permit online. And the first group that we provided that instructional training to was the PV type contractors. So what they do is they can submit this online 24/7, and they don't have to come in to either Kona or Hilo, sit on a bench, wait for their turn, whether there be 1 person in front of them, 2 people, or 6 people. They can submit their application, we give them a number, they bring in the drawing, they put it into a special box with the application, and then we will verify the information and process that through. So this program has just started, what we call online application. It's not complete, it's just the first step in online application. The next step that we're looking at in the online application, and tell me if I'm digressing too far, but I'm just trying to paint the total picture, is to be able to have the contractor pull the permit and pay it online using the county credit card system. Right now, they have to bring in a check. So we continuously are looking at how to make improvements on the system to streamline the process. But I think when you say that 1/3 certainly done within for less than 14 days, I mean, that's pretty darn good compared to what it was maybe a year ago.
All right. I don't know if you can answer the questions I needed to get one of the contractors up in Hilo. How much more time does it take for them to get a structural engineer or an architect stamp? I mean, we know how much money it costs approximately, but these are your time periods for the review process. This is assuming they already have a structural engineer or the architect stamp on it, correct?
This, the data that I have is that some had the stamp, some did not have the stamp. Yeah.
Okay, and the ones obviously that don't have the stamps and don't have one of those pre-approved mounting systems, you would bounce that one out and say you need to go get a structural engineer.
That's correct. That's under the present system.
Right.
So, and also what I mentioned, that if Bill 305 passes, then without that structural stamp, we would have to spend more time looking at the plan.
Okay, and that would possibly require a fee increase for you to have to review that at some point.
With the good graciousness of the council.
Yeah, we're not gracious. Okay. Let me ask, may I have one of the Hilo electrical engineers come forward? I want to ask them a question.
Identify you guys.
Khalil
All right.
Walters Electric.
Thank you. And the other gentleman?
Dino Shiro with DWE.
Okay. I'd like each one of you to answer this question. You get to choose which one, and no fighting, please. So you're filling out these applications online, I assume, and you're doing it to the best of your ability, and it gets sent in, and it gets rejected. So for some reason, you need a structural engineer. how long does it take to get the structural engineer's stamp?
I would say, okay, first of all, if you start it online, you still have to print it and then walk it down to the county building. So the online permitting process already is, it's more like a template. You know, it's not necessarily online. And I just want to clear that up. So you still have to physically take the plans and this sheet of paper down to the county to start the process. And then from there, it goes to building. They canceled planning just recently, so it goes from building to engineering, electrical, back to building. And that can probably take, I would say, I mean, honestly, like 14 days. And then when it goes to building and they figure out, oh, there's no structural engineering staff, they'll kick it back to us. Now we have to go find a structural engineer or architect. Probably could take a week, you know, I mean, I would say 14 days tops, you know, get them to stamp it, give it back to me, and then it's not like you start, you just drop it off and it gets bumped back to where it was. You know, you get back to the back of the pile again and wait in line like the rest of them. I guess the biggest question we should ask is, before the building permit, how fast was the process before when it was just electrical permit was required? Oh, it was a week, 7 to maybe 10 days, I would say. It was a very simple process. Just the electrical department have to look at it, and even for the inspections, which we never brought up, that it's really hard now trying to coordinate another bunch of inspectors. You know, the building inspectors, the electrical inspectors, and I guess one more point to kind of get off the subject, but the thing about the solar hot water is, you know, being 50 pounds per square foot only with the tank. That's not true. Even with just the panels, they're 50 pounds per square foot. Those things are heavy. And I know their point is that they're saying solar hot water doesn't take up the whole roof. It still doesn't dismiss the load, the dead load, yeah.
All right, thank you. The other contractor, please.
Okay, it took us 1 month to get our rails approved, the mounting systems approved from a structural engineer. So that's how long the delay was. It took us 1 month to get all the paperwork approved, and that's what bulletin number 2 that they just talked about that was just released. It was because of our mounting system that wasn't approved, and it was just all of a sudden, one day they said, you know, your mounting system's not approved, your plans are rejected. So this is the constant roadblocks that we hit, you know, that they just change things on us. And I don't know if you got that, I had a timeline made out with all the different changes from November 15th, and it's 3 big roadblocks we hit all along the way. Everything has been the same, drawings the same. All of a sudden, it's not good enough. Ask them, you issued me permits last week. I got systems installed, inspected. Why is my drawings not good? It was good last week. Then they come out with something like, oh, your mounting system, you don't have enough detail. So we gotta redesign, redo all our drawings, resubmit them again. Then we got them going. Then they had a workshop, they came out with this structural evaluation worksheet. Now we gotta fill this out. It's not clear on that worksheet what kind of listing they're asking for. All they do is ask for a listing. And also, they don't say anything about a home above 15 feet. All it says, if you read their structural evaluation worksheet, that any home under 15 feet will take a basic review. So I don't see anywhere where it says, what do you do on a 2-story home? Everything is verbal. They're just telling us, oh, well, if your home is 2-story, open beam, you're gonna have to get an architect or structural engineer to make the drawings. No, everything is all verbal. You look at all the paperwork.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lee, would you like to respond to that? I can certainly understand somebody's frustration if the changes are occurring as quickly as they're indicating, or everything's on a verbal basis instead of spelled out in writing.
I think it's been for the last 6 months or so, late last year, it's been a learning process for everyone.
Okay.
But you can just imagine that if we didn't make any changes, if we didn't listen or hear what the problems that the industry was running into, we'd be doing the same thing we did in the 4th quarter of 2011.
Right.
And how would we like that? I mean, the whole thing is that the changes are being made to improve the system, and you like to say that the system is perfect, but the system is not perfect, and we still are perfecting it. And I think we're just gonna have to deal with these changes. I think the key is how we communicate these changes. And one of the things that we've learned is that very well, and that's why as Deputy Director Gonzalez mentioned, we have issued notes to the 2 workshops that we had in mid-August with the concerns raised and the decisions made. So it is written, it's not verbal. We've issued 2 PB bulletins, maybe we're working on a 3rd right now to make sure everybody gets the same information at the same time. Because in the past, as part of our learning experience, was that if I talk to someone talks to one contractor and say, "Oh, this is good for your system," then the criticism we got was, "Well, why didn't you tell everybody? Because I can use that system too." So we're trying to put everything on a level playing field, and there were changes, and I think they're all made for the better. I think we just need to cope with it and say that this is improving the process. It's not perfect, but we will continuously strive to improve the process. So relative to the structural engineer staff, I mean, I've got several before me. I mean, this is the information that was submitted by the contractors. This one says ICC Evaluation Service. This is the people that write the code. They evaluate the materials that are submitted to them, and they give us the whole analysis.
All right, Mr. Lee, thank you. I'm not gonna make you go through that. I do have one question. When something gets rejected, the comment from both these contractors has been, they come back in with their correction, they go to the bottom of the pile and have to work their way up again. If somebody has already had some type of preliminary review through building or electrical, and now it's been bounced for lack of whatever, when they come back, could they come in after that point and show, hey, I fixed this, and so can you continue on through the process rather than start on the bottom of the pile again? And I don't know if that's reasonable or not, so you need to tell me.
Generally, the process that we follow is first in, first out. So if you get rejected the first time, you go through another cycle. Now, if the changes are a rejection, the reason for rejection is not substantial, there could be a pen and ink change or something that could be, okay, it's not that critical, just make it as an anthem. But I want to go back to one of the things that came out of the 4th quarter or November workshop, and that's the guidelines. And the purpose of the guidelines is to say, this is the basic information that we need to see, and not to dawdle on one subject, but either you need a structural engineer stamp. And this was before we pre-approved any system. So if it was submitted without a structural engineer stamp, what do? I say, oh, okay, my rules are only apply to some and not others. And then you went into the phase where you can have you need a structural engineer stamp, or you need a pre-approved system, black and white. So if you have neither of these, then something is set back.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm going to yield.
Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Mr. Yvonne, sorry. And Mr.
Okay,
Yoshimoto's next, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the discussion here today, but I gotta tell you, I personally was willing to vote for Bill 205 prior to the discussion, and after hearing the discussion, I'm even more in support of Bill 305. I want to support this because I think it's going to, in my estimation, it's going to not only bring the cost down, you know, for the consumer, because of not having to do the structural engineer for non-residential, for residential units, you know, but I believe that this whole intent was for us to try to save as much time as we can with the process. I cannot see how we can be the only county in the state of Hawaii that needs a structural engineer stamp. Can you explain why we would be the only county?
Well, first of all, let me verify that what the statement that was made from one of the contractors.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So at this point, I'd like to call out Mr. Chaiho Che, who is our representative of the State Building Code Council, and is very familiar with what requirements are with the other counties.
You heard the statement from the contractor, correct? Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Is it a correct statement? Is it a true statement?
repeat the statement. So Honolulu, they require building permit for the PV. Kauai, they require building permit and the electric permit. Also, Maui, they don't need. Did I answer that?
We're talking about the structural engineer stamp.
So the question is, Mr. Cheng, is that is a structural engineer or architect stamp required in any other county?
No. Only the PV on the ground, yes, for that.
So we're the only county that requires.
Correct.
Okay, why is that?
The requirement for the structural engineer stamp is that when you look at the what is a PV system and what is it attached to. The PV system in most cases residential is attached to a roof. Okay, so the roof is supporting the PV system through a mounting system, whether it be a single clip or a rail clip, screw, glue, I'm exaggerating, okay, but a screw glue, but a single mounting clip, and that mounting clip has to be, if it's a single mounting clip, it's got to hit something solid.
No, I understand that.
Understand
Yeah,
the complexity.
what I don't understand is that why is it that the other counties does not require it? I mean, if it's why is it only our county deems it absolutely necessary to have this, while other counties? Is there something that we know that they don't know? Is there something that we deal with that they don't deal with?
Well, I think to answer that question, the way I answer that question, Councilman Chairman Yagong, is that on the County of Hawaii, Public Works, Building Review, we look at it from a standpoint of science, technology, engineering, and basic math.
Okay.
If there is a load on that PV panel that can occur and acknowledged through the building code, I mentioned not the dead load in the case of PV systems, not the live load, but the wind load. I'm talking about the uplift, and I'm talking about the vacuum that can be created, that is proven, that is a load to be concerned about. And that load, when it's applied to the PV panels, is only as good as either the connectors, which is the rails, the bolts, the screws, the lag nuts, or whatever you want to use, and the condition of the building.
Okay, fair, Mr. Lee, fair enough, because you've always been one that have come before the county council when we talk about the building code, that first and foremost is safety is your issue. So I'm certainly not surprised by you bringing this forward. Here's the thing though for me, Mr. Lee, you know, when it comes from the contractor's point of view and the consumer's point of view, and of course governmental partnership, here's the thing, as a contractor, it would be absolutely crazy for me to install a system on a home where that system is going to be unsafe. Because if that house collapses, if the system fall down, you know, people will look at that, and you know, it's the contractor that's going to bear the burden of that. Not only the cost of having to either replenish or fix that, but even the reputation. You know, it's in the best interest of the contractor to make sure that when they install these things, they install it to make sure that it is safe, that it is going to be something that's going to provide them repeat business. People will purchase based on word of mouth from other people. So it would be almost crazy for someone to put on a system that comes from a home prior to 1994 that, you know, doesn't have all those changes that was made due to what happened back with Hurricane Iniki. I mean, the contractor has that responsibility as well. When they go and assess putting on the system and asking themselves, this system is not going to be safe for your home is going to go because your home was built prior to X and X and X. So I mean, so there is, we gotta allow, to me, the way I look at it, we gotta allow and provide the support to the industry, because they're the one that number one has to put it in, and in my mind, they're the one that we will be ultimately responsible and liable for an incorrect implementation of their system. You know, so for me, you know, when we talked about streamlining, we don't want to streamline PLDC, land use. We don't want to streamline that. But this is the kind of stuff we want to streamline to help our economy to go. And when you take a look at the amount of insulation that's being requested, just the amount of permits that's being requested, it shows that there's a tremendous consumer demand. And when you have this tremendous consumer demand, What we should do is help that demand by not being or standing in the way of being able to allow something that's going to be beneficial economically for individual residents out there. Because to me, the key is getting this darn thing on the roof, and of course, getting it done there safely. Where in the end, they're going to be able to realize savings. So I don't want to stand in the way, you know. And in fact, my sense of it is you folks are doing everything you can to make us not stand in the way by putting together processes. But I tell you, the structural engineer, if it's not allowed in other islands, I think we can stand in line as well. So I like what Mr. Yoshimoto put forth together here today, and because I think it's a step in the right direction. So I'm ready to support Bill 305 as presented by Mr. Yoshimoto. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Here in Hilo, we have Mr. Yoshimoto. Go ahead, Mr. Yoshimoto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, yeah, council members, I was just trying to, again, introduce something that was suggested to me by people out in the community who saw this as a problem. And one of the tipping points for me is, prior to the council passing the building code in November of 2011, these requirements for the architect and structural engineers were not in place. So the process before was simplified. So the question, as I think one of the testifiers stated, was, what changed, from that point on. And I recognize that there are public health and safety concerns that Public Works is mentioning. And for us, I think the key is to balance the needs of the people in having an efficient process, a cost-effective process, versus meeting these standardized building codes and things like that. So I'm going to side on the air of practicality, trying to move things forward. So I'm going to ask for council member support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshimoto. Any more discussion in Kona?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, yes, I'd just like to clarify. I just confirmed this with Mr. Chai Ho Che relative to the stamp, professional stamp requirements, especially for the city and county of Honolulu. They do not require a professional stamp, but they require to use a pre-approved system that went through this stamp type review. So it is a pre-approved system that was submitted by a registered architect or structural engineer that went through the system. And not want to make light of public health of the economy, but the economy, the point is, so if you don't need a structural engineer stamp, what does that mean? That means you still got to process the permit, right? And we still need to look at what are the factors of this solar panel being attached to a roof. So we don't have a structural stamp to say someone who is a registered professional engineer or architect has already reviewed this and cleared it if they do not select the pre-approved mounting system. So somebody's going to have to do that review. If we don't do it, then I think an issue of building permit, I have some serious concerns. Why would we put our okay on something that was not thoroughly checked, or because of, say, policy issues, we should not check? I think that's what you're telling our people. Because a structural engineer stamp is not required, we shouldn't check for structural requirements. That's one way to look at it. The other way is that, I think as Mr. Neil Erickson mentioned earlier, all the applications that we're seeing right now, 50% of the applications are using these pre-approved mounting systems that have been submitted to the city, to the building division, and right now there are 5 mounting systems, and 50% of the applications go through that. So they do not need a structural or architectural stamp. Now, if someone is going to be doing business in the island of Hawaii for a long time, I'm sure, I hope they got their suppliers lined up, and all they need to do is ask the suppliers, the technical people, please submit enough justification from that has gone through the approval of, let's say, the review of the ICC evaluation service, which this is one report, and it looks at all the structural issues, and it says, okay, this is adequate for this type of application, and gives you a whole range. If there's anybody, other mounting systems that other contractors wanna use it, not on the approved list. I mean, the question is, why don't they have these data sheets and these approvals and these systems engineered already, so that can be quickly reviewed, and ultimately, a structural stamp is not required. So,
Mr. Lee, let me ask a question, please. If the contractor is using a pre-approved mounting system on a commercial structure, do they still need to get a structural engineer stamp? This mounting system is pre-approved.
For commercial?
For commercial. Do we still require them? If they're using pre-approved mounting system, does it matter whether it's residential or commercial?
Most likely, if they're using a pre-approved, system, a mounting system is already approved. So the question is, on a commercial, generally, a commercial, for example, the whole roof of Costco is almost the whole roof of Costco got the PV system. But when you look at it, it's all basically in modules or arrays. So the systems that we approve saying that if you're using this type of rail, the spacing needs to be 8 feet, 7 feet, or whatever, depending on your application and your tilt of the wind. So if they're using a pre-approved mounting system, like in the case of Costco where they have a tilt and the roof is flat, then if that's not covered in the application system that was submitted for pre-approval, they will need a structural engineer's stamp.
So the answer is, it depends.
It depends on the application. So if the application is in accordance with the pre-approved system, then no stamp.
Thank you. I yield. Thank you, Ms. Ford. Here in Hilo, we have Mr. Onishi. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, Mr. Erickson, didn't you just say that even though you have a pre-approved system, you still gotta get a building permit?
That's correct, yeah, although you do not require structural engineer and architect stamp for a review system. That's correct. Although, let me just clarify, the pre-approved systems have guidelines for installation, so I think that's what Mr. Lee is trying to point out. So we're just following the manufacturer's recommendations or that of the structural engineer. So even though the stamp isn't required for individual applications, like the two gentlemen that spoke earlier, both have pre-approved systems. So if they follow those guidelines, no engineer is required or architect for the individual application.
But you still gotta go through the input.
That's correct, yeah, and it is taken in order received. We right now have 10 applications for PV on our counters in Hilo, and we try to review them daily. So if they're returned to us with corrections, we try to deal with them the same day.
I also wanted to clarify that, and I have to check if this is up to date, but as of December 9, 2009, the County of Maui did require applications for electrical permits for photovoltaic systems to include a letter from a licensed architect or structural engineer verifying that the roof assembly structure, basically the mounting system, is adequate to support the PV system. So that's consistent with the County of Hawaii aspects as well.
Well, I want to call Mr. Kaimi, not Kaimi, I'm my brother, Keola. Yeah, because I know, well, I see your brother, so everything going on, but comfort, because I mean, I see kind of like, they are not agreeing too much, because they mentioned about like Honolulu, and you can give some comments.
On Maui right now, we don't have to turn in a letter we don't have to get an architect's approval, we don't have to get an engineering stamp. They only require electrical permit. And actually, there's only like 1 or 2 ladies up there who take care of the entire island. And I'm sure they're doing just the same workload as the Big Island, if not more. To give an example of because what Mr. Lee was saying, I know what Mrs. Ford was trying to say she was trying to ask if you take out the structural architect and engineer, is it going to streamline the process? And he tried to say that if you take it out, he's going to have to look at it even deeper, which is odd to me. And that it's like if you tell a dishwasher, you don't have to rinse the cups, just put it into the dishwasher. He's going to have to look at it even longer to make sure he doesn't have to rinse it, or he does before putting it in. I mean, his job should be faster. It kind of, I was kind of amazed back there listening to it. It doesn't make sense. But as far as that, in Maui, all they need is an electrical permit, electrical inspection. It's a very fast process, and you know, as far as these pre-approved systems, I'll give you an idea. Like in Oahu, what they did was they put an express lane. If it's a corrugated roof, you know, and everything in Oahu is actually over 15 feet. I mean, there's not a lot of single-story homes over there. Let's be honest with ourselves. Probably 75, 80%, they can only build up. But if it's a residential, single-story, corrugated roof using this kind of mounting system, you go into this express lane, and it can actually take 24 hours for them to process. It's a very simple process. And getting back to the permit fees, Honolulu is the cheapest. It costs $0 for a renewable energy. I am not saying that the County of Hawaii should do that because I'm a realist. You guys need money to pay the inspectors to drive out, you know, pay everybody, you know, to review it. I don't know how they get away with it, but it costs $0 for renewable energy. But like I said, if Oahu was to require this structural engineer and architect stamp, it would slow down their process to a halt, you know, and it would be chaos up there. And then also, like Mr. Gonzalez said earlier, that PV is not the only permits they process. Well, you know, in the meeting we had, according to them, the numbers was 1,700 total permits this year, up until I believe it was July 31st, and out of the 1,700, 1,100 was PV. And you know, I know for sure there had to be at least 350 to 400 solar hot water permits. So you're talking about a solar industry is probably taking up what 1,500 permits out of the 1,700 total. That's pretty much all you're doing. You know, that is your industry. And you know, all I'm saying is that we got to be real. And I love what Mr. Yagong said. You know, why are we the only island? I mean, that's what I ask myself all the time. You know, it's kind of embarrassing to me when I sell a system to one person, and then the next week I sell it to her sister, and I can't even get a permit out. It's embarrassing. It's like, how did you put my sister's one on? I don't know. You know, they just changed the guidelines yesterday. You know, and that, to me, that's not right. Like, we need guidelines. What we need is we need it set in stone. It can't be subjective.
And that's what my next thing was, because I've heard testimony where, you know, you folks getting a lot of verbal commitments or verbal instructions, and like all you folks want is something written right down in black and white, saying, okay, this is the steps, this is what you have to do, and so forth, right?
Yes.
So now my question would be to Mr. Lee or to Mr. Gonzalez, why can't you folks do that? Why is it every contractor is getting whatever information?
Councilman Onishi, I think I answered that question. We issued the guidelines, we issued the notes to the meeting, and we issued several PP bulletins. So I think what you need to do is take that comment in context of what timeline, when are we talking about? 6 months ago, 5 months ago? But what it is today is what I just mentioned.
But it seems like that as they go to the office or they go to see, you know, like either the electrical or they go to see the building, they're being told this verbally. And it's not like what they want something written.
I guess I don't understand the comment because we review according to the standards and the code and the guidelines.
Okay, maybe then I can
Now, if someone has a unique situation that is not common, then I think that takes some extra effort, yeah.
Then maybe then I can have Mr. Oshiro come up?
I beg your pardon?
No, I have Mr. Oshiro come up. Because I think you made a comment about, you know, you being told something and so forth.
Right here, I have this is the guidelines that I received November 14th at 4:30. Code went in effect November 16th. This was the only guidelines that I got in November.
And you haven't received anything or any
Then it
bulletins?
changed. The next change was so in February they had a change where that's where they told us that our plans weren't detailed enough. You have to show more details on your plans.
Now, this is to your company?
This is for our company.
Okay. So you're speaking about your own company, right? That they're talking to you about.
Yeah.
Right. And who is this telling you this?
At that time, it was the plan reviewer, Todd Tanimoto. He rejected my drawings, So I asked him, why are you rejecting my drawings? My drawings approved last week. Why are you rejecting it this week? And he said, well, because it's not detailed enough. So what do we need to show? Well, we need to show the rail spacing, at the lever from the end of the rails to the first hanger bolt. Mounting detail you gotta show. So I was like, what is a mounting detail? Where does it say what a mounting detail is? Give us more information. If they had given us more information and had not changed anything along the way, we wouldn't be here. But it's just those constant changes while we're going that is causing, customers. We gotta explain to the customer, oh well, like Khalil was saying, you sell a system to a sister and then now, I can't install it because they changed it. That's exactly what's been happening.
And so everything's all being verbally, or like they show you something in black and white?
They come out with things, but it's not clear. It's really not clear.
It's real general.
It's really, really general. Just like this latest one on the rails where they want us to have a structural engineer to approve the system. All they're asking is on their 2-sheet evaluation sheet, is on the back. Is the mounting structure, is the manufacturer, is the mounting structure an engineered product designed to mount PV systems? Yes, all rails is designed to mount PV systems. That's what it's sold for. Then they ask the listing. We give them a listing. All the rails have listings. Then they reject it, saying it doesn't have an ICC listing. So if you guys wanted an ICC listing, come out. Tell us from the beginning. Not, it's this came out. This last thing on our rails was in July. That's when they came back to us saying your rails is not it's not an approved mounting system. November is when the code took effect. So that's the problems that we've been facing. And with the mounting system, I know we're not the only ones with the mounting system.
Have you folks or have you heard from other companies having the same problems that you folks face?
Everybody has the same problem. Yeah. All the contractors, a lot of the contractors that I talk to, everybody always running into. Right now, every time it's a different problem, and we've all been running into the same problem. And right now, the problem is the mounting system.
And this gentleman that you talked to, he comes from the electrical department side or from the building side?
Building side.
I see David Yamamuro, who's in charge of building now. Could you please come up? Thank you. Introduce yourself.
My name is David Yamamoto. I'm the building.
Okay. We've been hearing some contractors came in to say what the problems they're facing. Have you folks gotten any comments or complaints from contractors saying that the process that you folks have right now is confusing?
Yeah, we have had workshops and listened to their concerns. And with that, we went back and we further developed the guidelines to help them understand what we need to be able to approve the system.
Okay, so that form that he just told us about, Mr. Oshiro, about on the back part about the mounting system. And then he puts everything, he answers yes, he puts the listing, and now he gets rejected because it says something about the ICCI and whatever, right? Can it be, the questions that you folks have on that form more detailed so the contractor would know, or did you folks have a workshop telling them how to fill out that form?
I don't think we had a workshop to explain how to fill out the form. Basically, I guess we assume certain things that when you're looking for a listing, it's basically the testing type agencies. But some of these applications came in with an ISO listing, which has nothing to do with any testing. It's just a management process or management system. So, obviously, it's not going to give us the information that we need to recognize that it was properly tested.
But the question that's on the form, it doesn't even state that what you folks want, right? So it's already confusing for anyone.
I mean, basically, the people who might know what the question's about is the employee at accountability or at building, right? But other than that, any contractor or even like us wouldn't understand. We'll just go whatever it states, right? So
Yeah, so we can try as we recognize these areas that people are misunderstanding. We updating our bulletins and our guidelines to help them better understand what they're looking for.
because
So it's been an ongoing process of trying to better the process.
what I think needs to be done is that you folks need to get one like a meeting with the contractors and with the building and with the electrical division and sit down and come up with a form that everybody understands and that any contractor can come in and know what you folks want, and then that way we can keep the process going faster. So is there something you folks working on?
So Nishi, this is Warren Lee, of the corner. I just want to, I think this is good discussion, but I think we'll go back to the question and what was raised by Mr. Oshiro. He's talking about something that happened in November, and I presume it's 2011. This is now September 2012, and as as David mentioned, is that there has been progress. So I think the fair question is to Mr. Oshiro: is do you understand it now, or you have any questions?
Excuse me, Mr. Lee, Mr. Onishi, I think we're prolonging this thing, or we have to cut to.
Okay, sorry.
We're running behind time now.
Well, I'll just have Mr. Yamamoto. You have any other comments? Last comments? No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're gonna close this now. Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Ms. Ford.
Honolulu twice.
Mr. Hoffman. Aye. Mr. Ikeda. Mr. Onishi.
Aye.
Mr. Pelago.
Aye.
Ms. Smart.
Aye.
Mr. Yugal. Aye. Mr. Yoshimoto. Aye. Chair Blas.
Aye.
Chair Blas, you have 8 ayes.
Bill 305 has passed the council with favorable recommendation. May I have a motion to adjourn? It's moved and seconded. It's moved by Mr. Onishi, second by Mr. Yoshimoto. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? This meeting is now adjourned.
Government relations at 3:40? 3:40.
It's 3.